much, Joel, for giving us an opportunity to have this interview. Just to discuss, about what compassion is all about, and what is happening in the country currently. So feel welcome.
Thank you.
The best place to begin is you tell us your name, and probably you can also tell us about your family.
So my name is Joel Macharia, and I'm married to Sally. We got married in 2002, so
Yes.
this is 2020, so this is about coming to 18 years. So we are blessed with 3 young people.
Yes.
We have a boy who is in Form 3 called Jesse, and we have 2 daughters. We have Karen in class 7, and we have Olivia, who is in class 2. So that's my family. Yes.
When did you join Compassion? And probably you can also talk to us about the positions you have held ever since you joined, and where did you come from before joining Compassion?
So I came to Compassion in January of 2004, 19th January actually.
Okay.
So this is this January, maybe in about less than 2 weeks, I will be 16 years in Compassion.
Yes.
So I came from Kenya Airways then,
Yes.
and before then I'd worked with an audit firm from the time I graduated.
Okay.
So I've, graduated in 1999, so this is 21 years I think working.
Yes.
So when I came in as an auditor. So I did audit, so I'll go around to different churches that we are in partnership with and do audits, financial, operational audits. I did that for 1.5 years. The other thing I would do that time was collect information about what are the training needs. When you do audit reviews, then you'd find there'll be some gaps. Some of those would recommend them for training. We say these are as a result of capacity issues.
Okay.
So we'd have trainings done. 1.5 years down the line, I transitioned. The accountant who was there then left. So that time it was actually called, they were called finance specialist. So my boss that time came and said, "Oh, you're the accountant from today. You're the finance specialist from today."
Okay.
So I took on that role, and I did that for another 3 or so years, just over 3 years.
Yes.
Then again, the person who was heading operations, then it was called finance and admin.
Yes.
Then there was a restructure, then it changed to something called ministry services. The manager then left, and then I was asked if I could step into that role by the then country director, who was Sydney Mwisio.
Okay.
So I stepped into that role and did it for about 1.5 years. And I was just settling down, because 1.5 years is not a very long time in a new role.
Yes.
It was a managerial role. It was the first time I was doing a managerial role in a full-time, as a full-time job.
Yes.
So then Sydney left. He got promoted. We got an email from Colorado Springs saying that he's the new vice president. So which was a double promotion for him, from country director to regional vice president.
Yes.
And then we happened to have gone, we had a management retreat, an extended management retreat.
Yes.
And that time, Banda, who was the outgoing vice president for Africa region, came with Sydney, and then a gentleman called Dawit, who was is now late, who had been promoted from Ethiopia. He was in the regional office, but then he had just been promoted to become the area director that time for East Africa.
Yes.
So they came together and they found us at Lukenya Getaway, where we were having the retreat. And Banda, the outgoing vice president that time, asked a very interesting question. So he gave us papers.
Yes.
And he said, we are thinking about the next country director, so can you give us ideas who you think could be the next country director? Which was very interesting. So we wrote names. We were told, I think, to write 3 names.
Yes.
We wrote names and we handed them over. And then the meeting went on, and that was the last day of the meeting. And then I was driving a vehicle. That I remember it was KY. We sold it. We had it for quite some time, Toyota Corolla. And so I was the one driving. So I went to and had some of the staff who were to drive together with. Then a lady by that time who was a CD assistant or country director's assistant called Dorothy. She came running and said, "Hey Joel, you're being asked to remain behind."
Yes.
So I said, "Okay, but I'm driving." I said, Sina said they will drive. You go together with them, so you can give the car to someone else.
Okay.
So I was a bit puzzled. Then, long story short, within the hour, I was being interviewed for country director, and I'm thinking. So they said, "Oh, your name came up most of the time."
Yes.
So other names also came up. So I'm thinking, okay. I'm in interview for a job I didn't apply. I wasn't ready for, and I was actually telling them, I'm not ready for this, and I was proposing to them other names.
Yes.
So why don't you think about so and so? Why don't you consider so and so and all that? Because I was thinking, what is this? I'm not ready for it. I'm settling down in my new
in the new role.
In the new role.
Yeah.
Long story short, I
became
I became the country director then.
Yes.
That was in. And then an announcement was made. That was on 15th of March, 2010.
Wow.
So we had a 2-week transition time with Sydney.
Yes.
And on first we had a retreat, an all staff retreat.
Okay.
And he fully handed over on 1st April of 2010. It sounded like an April Fool's Day joke, but it was actually true.
Wow. That is I'm just following the trail of how long you have stayed in each role.
Yeah.
And voila, you have become the country director within a very, I would think a very short. I'm imagining there are people who probably you found in the organization, and I don't know if you would mind if I asked what age you were then, being the country director.
So that was in 2010.
2010.
I was below 35 years.
Wow.
I think I was 34 years.
Wow.
So I was pretty, for the Ministry Services Manager, which is more finance admin.
Yes.
I was responsible for HR, IT, finance,
yes,
and operations. I felt prepared for that, and I felt what I had done in school, had prepared me for that.
Okay.
MBA, all these things. So I felt sort of within me qualified.
Yes.
But as country director, I felt completely out of my depth.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure. I wasn't qualified. I didn't feel qualified for it.
Yes.
But I think that was a good thing. In that I tapped into one thing I had, which is learning.
Yeah.
I'm a natural learner. I love to learn. So I didn't know much about program.
Yes.
I didn't know much about program communications and other things. So I had so many things to learn.
Wow. That's an amazing amazing journey. And what came in now? You've been given this responsibility of heading a whole country. I'm imagining what is running into your mind. What is the feeling at that time? Did you think you would? Of course, you've said you would have made it, but I'm imagining it's a big task. What is running into your mind? You've just been told you're going to be the country director.
Yeah, so a lot was going through my mind.
Yes.
Moments of doubts, self-doubt.
Yeah.
There is, of course, being an internal person. I was not coming from outside.
Yeah.
I couldn't pretend.
Yes.
People know me.
Yeah.
People know where I'm coming from. I know people.
Yes.
So, and I also knew there are people who actually wanted to be.
Yes.
That I know.
Yeah.
And you're working with them.
Yeah.
So it's not. So there was the initial issue of building credibility.
Yes.
And building trust. And building some level of legitimacy with staff.
With staff, yeah.
Because being an internal candidate and in that environment.
Yes.
So that was one. The other one was, of course, we were having some challenges with some performance issues.
Yeah.
And those days, things like program communication, key result indicators, or KRIs as we're calling them,
Yes.
were being taken very seriously in the organization. I remember Banda and some other people when I went for my orientation in 2010.
Yes.
In May of 2010 in Colorado Springs in the US. And, telling me, many people will judge you by performance. No matter how committed you are to the cause of children,
Yes.
they will look at, are you able, the proxy indicator will be, how well are you doing
Yes.
with the basics, getting the basics right. And I think that was good advice.
Wow.
And that was also driving a lot of things. KRIs and all that performance was driving. That time the allocation for NBRs, we call them NBRs today, new beneficiary registrations or requests.
Yes.
That time we were calling them quota. So growth of the country was dependent on country's performance, which is sound because it was based on the principle of,
yes,
if you are faithful in little, you can be entrusted with more.
With more.
So what I did was, when I came back, I took time. I sat with staff to really understand, who are in program communication and,
yes,
and program and partnership that time. So I sat with them and really wanted to understand their jobs, because I came from the operations side,
yeah,
which was not very common to have a country director coming from
operations.
Most of the time,
Yeah,
traditionally, they came from program.
Yes.
Because largely we are a program organization.
Exactly.
So I had to take enough time to part of building credibility and legitimacy, really, and to really take time to understand. So it took time to understand and really learn, and then again understand what is needed for us. What are the ingredients? How does success come about?
Yes.
How do you, what are the building blocks of getting the right KRIs?
Exactly.
What are the building blocks of getting the program right? So again, I think one of the things that was an advantage was being an outsider to program,
yes,
and program communication. In a sense, I could see it with a set of new eyes.
Yes.
And clearly be able to identify what are the areas, what's working, what's not working, what needs to be fixed, what do we need to stop doing, and all that.
Yes.
And within a short time, and of course with a lot of collaboration, as we are told by scripture that in the multitude of counselors there is safety.
Yes.
If you're doing something, it's good to seek counsel from people who've been there, done that.
Yes.
So we were able to figure it out, and we came together and agreed. And the basic thing we did was, let's have individual accountability for results. Because we were looking at the KRI,
yes,
or other performance indicators, for the country.
For the country.
But you see, work is done by individuals.
Yes.
It boiled down to teams, then to individual people. So what we did was, we came up with a KRI for every individual, which will then build up to the KRI for the nation. So that way then we're able to figure it out. If one individual KRI was off, then would actually then go to the person and find out what was working, what's not working, what's going on.
Yes.
And then would figure out what the issue is. Maybe the person is not a good fit, or maybe the person need more training, or they need just a peer coach, and things like that. So that's how we were able to figure it out, and of course now rebuild the management team. I needed to hire someone to replace me, where I came from. So again, rebuilding the team, and on we went on, and I think by the time I was taking over, we had 70,000 total number of children, babies, children, and young people.
Yes.
And today is 10 years down the line. That number is just over 130,000, which is about 67% growth.
Wow!
So that has been a
tremendous
growth,
for sure.
Growth, yeah.
You were just talking about now you have been given this huge responsibility. You have not stayed in the organization for a very long time. And there are people that you got in the organization, and this happens a lot in so many organizations, that acceptability, that this is going to be our new national or country director. And there are people who have been there for a long time. There are people who needed that position. What do? Do you just decide, okay, let me focus on doing my job, or do you focus on also bringing them on board, and how will you now be able to deliver? Do you go to school now? You were a finance person and also doing operations. Do you go to school to learn about managing people? What happens then at that level?
That's an important question. So it takes time.
Yes.
Number one, I was about how many years? About 6 years.
Yes.
In the organization that time. Barely just about 6 years.
Yeah.
And done 3 different roles. So the time I was an auditor, it had really prepared me in a sense, because I was able to practically visit almost all the partnerships we had.
Okay.
So I had a good view of the program, but from a review point of view.
Yes.
So in terms of building credibility and legitimacy, it takes time. But the approach I took, one is that when I was in Ministry of Services as a manager,
yes,
a decision was made in the organization then to have HR under Ministry of Services.
Okay.
So I hadn't been trained in HR.
Yeah.
So I was talking with my boss that time, Sydney, and we said, I said to him, I think it's good for me to actually go to school and learn about HR, because in the other areas I'm prepared, but, this is a professional area, but I'm not qualified for this. So I actually went to school and had the right professional qualification. I did that, and Institute of HR, and actually I'm a HR practitioner. Okay. No, well, not practitioner, but I'm trained in HR. And in a sense, I'm a practitioner because when you lead people and you manage, one of the key aspects of managing is human resource management. So just like the other resources like money and equipment and things like that. Yes. So that had by the time I was becoming country director, I was actually finishing school for that. So that in a sense prepared me also the aspect of technical and leadership issues about people, but not quite fully. There are some things it's not dependent so much on like the question you're raising. It's a question of acceptability. Do people accept you? It has nothing to do with whether or not you're qualified. It's really and of course there is in our context generally people are promoted on seniority, but by age and maybe by how long you have by tenure in an organization. I didn't have that. I neither had age or tenure. So but it fell on me that I was the leader then. So it just takes time. But the other thing I did was to really focus on, get people to focus on, not me, but taking attention off me, but really focus on, get people to focus on what is our common vision, what are we here for? And we rallied all the troops around the cause, rather than on an individual. With time, things resolve, and of course, with time, people are wondering, are you going to be fair to them? There are issues of people feeling safe. Do people feel safe? Do people feel, there's the issue of psychological safety. Exactly. And understood that. So those things take time. How you make decisions about people, whether it's fairness. So some of the decisions I did at that time is to make sure that we'll be a merit-based organization. Because we are as a country, we are in the context of also even my ethnicity. Some people feel like they're threatened by that. Is this person going to be making decisions based on their ethnicity and things like that? So I understood those things there in the context and said, okay, we are going to hire on merit. Two, we are going to be a diverse organization. Diversity in terms of ethnic diversity, but of course merit first. Merit and then ethnic diversity, and of course issues like other types of diversity, like looking at career background, where where they are coming from in terms of organization. So you mix internal and external candidates. You're looking at people who can do the job. There are some jobs that will require an entry-level person. There are others that will require someone who is seasoned, depending on the work that is there. Issues of compensation and many other decisions, how you make decisions. And you do things in a way that is consistent and is just. So I set out to really build a just and equitable human resource environment. So with time, I wouldn't say you never get there. There's never a perfect time.
Yeah.
But
it's
a continuous improvement.
Work, yeah.
And then of course the other thing I did was at some point I went back to school and I did organizational leadership, a master's in organizational leadership. That was very helpful because then I learned lots of things around how to lead, culture, issues like that, diversity, many things around how to lead an organization, especially a Christian ministry.
Wow.
And that was very helpful. And also learned issues of development and things like that. So over time, in terms of what I needed, in terms of credentials,
yes,
I think I was able to get that.
Wow.
Sort of that builds credibility and also gives you confidence. But at the same time, what really matters in the end of the day, what speaks most is the results.
The results.
With time, when people begin to see the results,
yeah,
then you silence a lot of negative voices.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing how you were able to, you've gotten this opportunity or responsibility, then you have to go to school. You've talked about you did organizational leadership, that is at Masters.
Yeah.
You have done human resource, after getting the job. And you've also done you did other courses,
But I mean, before then I'd done an
MBA to prepare you for good. So now back to the core, children, because again, the core of compassion is about children. And initially you'd said you had left Kenya Airways, where so many people want to try, and at that time were running to Kenya Airways. So you've left Kenya Airways, you've come to deal with issues, children. What is the motivation behind this?
It's really personal. Back when I was in University of Nairobi,
yes,
it was a time when, in the 90s, it was a time when there was a lot of agitation for political freedoms. That time, Kenya had just become a multi-party nation, and there was a lot of political agitation and all that. And in those days, university students, when I was in the University of Nairobi doing a BCom. That time it was called Faculty of Commerce. These days they call it School of Business. And many times the school was closed because students would be joining in. I remember Professor Wangari Maathai mobilizing about Karura Forest and other places, and many of us would join in those kind of courses. So there were good courses, but then university students were just known for political and angry political activism. So I was in the Christian Union. So we asked ourselves, as Christians, what can we do to use our our university platform to tell people that it's not all about political activism.
Yes.
That there are people who are called, who are Christians and who profess the name of Christ.
Yes.
So we said, okay, that time also there was one huge problem, a social problem.
Yes.
We had a huge problem especially in Nairobi, in other towns and cities, of street families and street children.
Yes.
And they'll be, because in their quest to survive, they'll get involved in snatching things, and there'll be mob justice and things like that. So we teamed up with Undugu Society that time, as University of Nairobi Christian Unions, and we said, okay, let's do a charity walk and raise awareness about the plight of these children in the streets. And at the same time, raise money to get to accelerate what Undugu Society was trying to do, to get them out of the streets and to get them to rehabilitate them, get them to do like a course, technical courses, and do something useful for their lives, get a different livelihood. Yes, because they were becoming, their needs were changing because they were maturing. Yeah. So we did that. And we were on radio, TV all that time, and that was so that, in a sense, tugged my heart about the plight of some of the most vulnerable people children in crisis. Yes. Some of the vulnerable people we had in our nation. So then, when I finished University of Nairobi, I was doing CPA and I was doing BCom. I found I found a job with an audit firm. Yeah. And then after that, I found a job with Kenya Airways. But then I began feeling very restless. All 3 years down the line, I began feeling very restless. So I was wondering, what is it? Yeah. So So I wasn't sure why I was restless, because I had a good job. I was doing well. I was upright and mobile. I had a job that many people would envy.
Yeah.
And so one of the days I was perusing through a newspaper, just a normal, regular day, and I saw this advert. So what actually caught my attention was the logo, compassion, releasing children from poverty in Jesus' name. And I sort of froze. I stuck. That caught my attention. I don't know why.
Okay.
But then I started reading. So who they are, I never heard of compassion before then.
Yeah.
And I was like 28, 29 years. So I looked at it, and I wasn't looking for a job. But for some reason, for some strange reason, I thought, let me apply for this.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for a job. So I applied. And Muinde then calls me. I didn't know him. He was HR at that time. And he called me and said, he was verifying my details.
Yes.
And we ended that telephone conversation. Then sometimes later, he called me again and said, can you come? I said, yeah, let me come. So it wasn't easy. There was not even a signage.
Yes.
Compassion didn't even have a signage.
Yes.
So it was even difficult to find the place at Kindaruma, 525 Kindaruma. So I found the place. And I was being interviewed by George Gitao. Then he was leaving. I didn't know he was leaving. Then there was Ben Omolo, who was the incoming country director at that time.
Yes.
Then there was Muinde. So we sat there and they're interviewing me and all that. But the office were not very nice. So I wasn't very sure about the place. It didn't look like a very promising place.
Yeah.
So because again,
because you're leaving Kenya Airways.
It was and we had very glamorous offices.
Yeah.
They were very glamorous offices with computerized and all that. It was quite some glamorous office that time. So I come to this place and it's looking almost dingy. I'm thinking. I remember, finally they gave me an offer, which wasn't better than what I already had.
Okay.
So I remember calling them and saying, hey, can you improve this package? They said, no, we always we review every year, so we can't review now. This is our starting point. So I said, let me think about it.
Okay.
So I went to talk to my boss that time. And he said, he really discouraged me. And he's saying, this is... Are you sure, it might be this, I've never heard of them. This might be a fly-by-night operation. I still remember him saying that. Yeah. Maybe a briefcase, you never know. Is it stable? Are you not sure you're making a bad career move and all that? But we were praying with my wife, who were newly married. I was newly married that time. We were praying and I felt a lot of peace about it, which was different from the restlessness I was feeling. So I left and I came. Okay. And I'm glad I came. So you asked about why children. So that's why I said it's personal. Yeah. So I think the origin of it was really, it's something that tagged me back then. Back at the university. Yes. Plus my background also. Okay. My background growing up. In a single mom, our family was dysfunctional. My parents separated. I saw the struggles we had growing up. My being a firstborn and all that. So that really resonated with me, and understood that if we invest in the lives of young people, then they can actually overcome their situation, especially if they're in crisis or if they're coming from very low income homes. They don't have to be. They have potential. They don't have to be condemned to their situation. They don't have to be inhibited. And this is an organization that is actually investing, motivated by the love of God. Yeah. Motivated by the love of God, investing in young people. People who shouldn't, people who a lot of people don't care about, but noticing them, investing in them, and actually releasing them to be who they really are. And I felt this is it. Okay. And to this day, I know one day I'll leave Compassion as an organization, but the Compassion, the cause, was born in my heart. Yeah. And because it's a value, compassion is a value. And every time I read scripture, there are many times Jesus would say, scripture would say, and Jesus had compassion on them. Yeah. And compassion is seeing the plight of someone and actually doing something about it, and not tokenism. There's also the compassion of giving something small to soothe your guilt. Yes. That's not compassion. Compassion is actually the story of the Good Samaritan. That's really the best example of compassion. Yes. And that's someone who sees someone. And Jesus was asked a question,
Yes.
who is my neighbor? And that's how he responded.
Yeah.
And later he asked the person, who then was a neighbor? And the person who was, I believe it was the lawyer who was questioning Jesus,
Yes.
grudgingly said, the person who had compassion.
Yes.
And compassion was, you immediately look at the situation the person is in.
Yes.
You do some element of basic relief. And that's a continuum of development. You start with, first of all, responding to the immediate situation.
Yeah.
Someone is hungry, someone is wounded, you respond to that immediate situation.
Yes.
Then after that, took the person, that's like first aid, took the person on his donkey, today would be a car, took the person to a hospital, that time it would be an inn.
Yes.
And say, hey, take care of this person. There's a good Samaritan didn't have the capacity.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the capacity. But you know how to connect the person to where they're going to get help, to the resources that they need that time. So the person was actually helped, and the good Samaritan paid the bill.
Yes.
And that's a mode of compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's connecting people who have a value of compassion, who want to help, but they may not necessarily know how,
Yes.
or they may not have the time or the expertise. So we then meet that need as Compassion International,
Yes.
and come in and take care of that individual on behalf of the other person. The other person pays the bill. But the only difference is that even those of us who are in compassion, we are actually being good neighbors. So really what we are doing as Compassion is being a neighbor to a hurting world.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm interested in knowing how we work as Compassion, because we cannot do this by ourselves. So you can briefly tell us, how do we work? Who are our partners? And how do we go about, releasing these children? And we're talking about 130,000 and above. How do we do it?
One, you have to focus. If you think about the numbers, it's 130,000 in Kenya.
Yes.
It's more than 2 million in the world.
Yes.
In Compassion, different
global.
countries globally. If you think about that large number, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So you have to really focus on one person at a time. So we have an individualized focus.
Yes.
So what we say is that we want every child to be known. That's very important.
Yes.
Because when there's someone who really know you and is interested and care and works with you and is really interested about your welfare and your growth and your progress, that's really important. That it has, you're well anchored.
Yes.
And you can go places irrespective of where your starting point.
Yeah.
So that's knowing someone, knowing the person.
Yes.
To love them. So you not only know them, but you really cherish them. You are for them. You care about them. You love them. And we are social beings. We want to be loved.
Yes.
Not just known. We want to be loved and cherished. And the other thing is protection. If you are, children in crisis, they are vulnerable to many things. All manner of exploitation, physical abuse, sexual exploitation, and psychological abuse, neglect, and many other forms of abuse that can happen. So you have to, we deal with that. We work with partners. Our primary partner is the church. Yeah. Actually, when you think about it, we are not the people. We actually are not in the front line. Yes. The church actually is the front line. Yeah. And we believe that the church is the one that has the calling and the clear mandate to be the neighbor to a hurting world, to show the love of God. The church is the hands and feet of Jesus. Yes. So the church is the one that has a calling. Compassion is not a church as an organization. We are part of the church, but we are not the church. Yes. So our role is to build the capacity of the church and to walk along the church to support and to strengthen the vision that they already have, and the mandate and the legitimate mandate that they have from God. Yes. So that's really what we do. And in addition to known, loved, and protected, is the idea of igniting children's potential. Children are not, they're already born with everything they need within them. But you can have a candle, but that candle, unless someone comes and ignites the candle, it will not light. So what we actually do in partnership with the church is to actually ignite that potential.
Yes.
And whatever is inside that person, by giving them the right opportunity, development opportunities. You know, it's going to school, issues of healthcare.
Yes.
If it's issues of having friends and being able to have the right concept of self, and you know, knowing and understanding that I'm made in the image and the likeness of God, and valuing myself and being valued by others.
Yes.
It's a question of knowing God, you know, our source.
Yes.
Because that's our source. Because again, when all the other factors have come together,
yes,
and you don't have God, I call it the God factor. If God is not in it, it's like you have set up an entire system, like say a sound system, and you've connected it to power, but it's not plugged. It's not, the switch is not on. The switch is off. So God is the source of all things. He's the source of life. I like what Jesus said, that He is the true vine. So, and any branch that is not connected will not bear fruit. It will wither and die. So God is the source of life. So that's why it's very, very important that and then only the church can do that. Only the church has the mandate for reconciling and connecting people back to God. So that's really what the essence of what you do.
Okay, and the relationship with the church. I've had, you know, sometimes when you sound like you're supporting somebody or sponsoring, or you look like you come and there is that tendency of this person depending on you. You become like a big brother. You become like, you know, without you we are not able to move forward. So that big brother syndrome, how the relationship, how are we able to deal with the church in a way that does not seem as if we are coming now to be sort of a solution, you know, for them, and not helping them think about the solutions within them? Yeah.
So it's a common issue in the space of development.
Yes.
That if you're not careful, one of the hazards that can come up is dependency, and the other one is an equal power relationship. So if you're not careful, an organization like Compassion or any other you know, mission or development agency, you can actually have been a position of power, and you can actually abuse that power. So that is something you have to be alive to.
Yes.
And therefore make sure that you actually are honoring the church or the people you're working with, the people you seek to help, like the children, so that you know that first and foremost they care about the cause, and they care about their lives, if the children and young people and their families. They deeply care about wanting to get out of their situation. They actually know what the solutions are.
Yes.
So you have to always remind yourself and be careful, and we do that very, very carefully.
Yes.
We have to constantly remind ourselves that we are there as a resource, not to direct, and not, you know, but to listen carefully, to have a beginner mindset, and to always be learning. Because again, we are not an expert in their situation, even though they are vulnerable, like the children and young people.
Yes.
All church, some of the churches that we work with, when we get there, like I remember one of the places we recently opened up in Laikipia. I went to a place called Chumvi.
Yes.
I think you were there when we did a Maskathon with Germany and Switzerland, I think last year.
Yeah.
And I was very, very happy to be there, because the last time I was there is when we were having conversations about having a partnership.
Yes.
And I remember having the conversation with our pastor. The church was falling. You know, the structure, not the church, but the structure of the church was falling.
Yes.
I think it was mud walls, very, it was shaky.
Yes.
And I mean, so if that is your partner, you could imagine that partner has nothing to offer.
Yeah.
But the truth is, infrastructure is not the same as the church.
Yes.
The church is the people.
Yeah.
And the people, they have a lot of resources. They are made in the image and the likeness of God. They have a lot of resources. They are an expert in their situation. They have relationships with people.
Yes.
So there's a lot that, though we may bring in some, you know, technical expertise and money and things like that, the church has something that we don't have and we will never have. The local relationships.
Yes.
They know people. They know their homes. they walk with them, they live in that community. You know, they have a clear calling from God. They have a vision, they know the history of where they're coming from.
Yes.
So actually we do this the simpler part,
yes.
but they do the most of the work. They're the one working with people and doing all the work.
Yes.
Know, and starting where people are starting and all the way. So when you understand that, you actually then right size your expectation one,
yes.
or rather really adjust your mind to know that you're actually not more advantaged. You actually need them.
Yeah, as a partner, an equal partner.
As an equal partner.
Yes.
I would even say they're even better than us.
Okay.
In that, after some time, even if you walk away, they can actually be able to walk, continue, even without us.
And we have actually done an interview with one of the pastors from Meru, and
Kisima, is it?
yes, and for sure, what you just talked about was real, because he said they are now sponsoring 600 children by themselves. They are mobilizing resources,
their own resources, yes.
and they are supporting children from the needy, background. So that is really amazing.